Well, my name is Daniel Schoonmaker. I'm the Executive Director of West Michigan Sale Business Forum, and I'm pleased to welcome you to our presentation today. For those that are not familiar with our organization, the Sustainable Business Forum is a collaboration of businesses and institutions dedicated to promoting sustainable business practices that advance climate leadership, social justice, circular economy, and community resilience. This is part of our series of online discussions on how the coronavirus pandemic is impacting sustainability and sustainable business. Upcoming presentations on this and other subjects include a sustainable return, addressing COVID while looking to the future, featuring three design experts from Fishbeck: Ted Perrin, senior mechanical engineer; Lisa Galdis, senior interior designer; and Steve Romkima, design architect. Understanding Implementing Business Continuity Planning, featuring Wendy Schwett of Sustainable Research Group, David Mule of Intertech, and Drynan Gorney of Beer and Electric. And then we're going to wrap up this series with our annual meeting on Monday, June 22nd, which this year will be online. For an opportunity to learn more about our organization and hear updates from what has been a very interesting 2019-2020 fiscal year. Videos of today's program and the prior sessions are available on demand at no cost. You'll find a link to those in the chat shortly that you may like to bookmark. You'll also receive a link to those with the feedback survey and any additional notes that come out of today's program. This series and all of our programs are primarily funded through membership donations. If you're not yet a member of our organization, I encourage you to become one. There has really never been a better time to do so, and probably never a greater need. First, I'd like to recognize a renewing corporate member with Public Services. And our latest renewing professional member, Mindy Miner, who is also the Sustainability Committee Chair for the City of Rockford. You may also be interested in learning more about our various working groups, including those with upcoming meetings this month. Our Campus Sustainability Working Group, which will meet next tomorrow, June 5th. Our Lakeshore Sustainability Leadership Council, which will be next week, June 10. Our Climate Leadership Working Group. And if you'd like to be involved in any of those, please let us know in the chat or reach out after the meetings. Now I'd like to welcome today's panelists for our program today: how lake levels of COVID-19 will impact beach and river cleanups. First, Tyrone Dobson, Senior Volunteer Engagement Manager at Lions for the Great Lakes. Brittany Goode, Sales Associate at Aldea Coffee. And Kathy Evans, the Environmental Program Manager for the West Michigan Shoreline Regional Development Commission. Thank you all for attending today. For our attendees, please note that you can share with the panelists or all of our attendees questions and thoughts through the chat function. You can also ask questions through the Q&A field. We will have time at the end of our presentations today for an open question and answer period. Tyrone, would you like to get us started talking today, talking about the wonderful work of the Alliance of the Great Lakes?
Absolutely. So let me go ahead and share my screen. All righty. So good morning, everyone. My name is Tyrone Dobson. I'm the Senior Volunteer Engagement Manager here at the Alliance for the Great Lakes. I'm headquartered in Chicago, but I make my way to West Michigan quite a bit. And it is some of my favorite beaches in the Great Lakes are actually in West Michigan. So I've been up there quite a bit and actually know that I have a couple of people on the line today that I've actually probably been at beach cleanups with. So I will jump in and talk a little bit more about our program and how you guys can be involved, and then also talking about some of those challenges that we're facing with high water levels as well as COVID-19. All right, so a little bit about the Alliance for the Great Lakes. So we're working to protect the Great Lakes for people and wildlife forever. And so that extends not only to the 40 million people that get their drinking water from the Great Lakes. So that boils down to 1 in 10 Americans and 1 in 4 Canadians. I tell everyone that this slide really serves as that trivia slide. So if you're ever at like a trivia night somewhere and you get like a Great Lakes themed night, this is like what you might want to refer to. I often, I'm originally from Tennessee. And so when I moved here, my lakes were much smaller. And so I never really truly comprehended the vastness of the Great Lakes until I started to see these types of slides. So it's 18% of the world's freshwater supply. It's a large amount of water and really goes to show how many people use this water to both work, live, and recreate. Like I said, that's 40 million people to get their drinking water from the Great Lakes. And also the Great Lakes are called home to 3,500 species of animals. So it's a resource for a lot of people and a lot of animals as well. One of my favorite things I talk about is volunteerism. I am from the volunteer state and I'm the volunteer manager. So I like to say that volunteerism runs through my blood. I want to talk to you about a couple of our volunteer opportunities, and I'll kind of weave in some of those COVID related concerns that we have with both of these. One of our programs, our newest volunteer program, is our Alliance Ambassador Program. This program is newer to the Alliance. At the heart of this program, we're looking to connect people with information so that they can share that with their spheres of influence. And that means a lot of different things. There are some events that we're asked to participate in. So think about your Earth Day fairs, your green fairs, your festivals, things like that. And we attend those events. We're a staff of 30 people, and there are a lot of events that we get invited to. We use ambassadors to represent the Alliance at those events. And so I know I know Brittany's one of our ambassadors in West Michigan, so I know that she's done some of these events. We have other ones across the region that do these as well. And so this is also not just going to events, but it also means sharing information with your colleagues, your friends, your frenemies, your enemies, whoever, in a lot of mediums. And right now with COVID-19, we're seeing a lot of this happen through social media. And so understanding that sphere of influence and understanding that you can have an impact even when you can't necessarily congregate in large groups is important. And we help our ambassadors with tools and tips to make sure that they can have the best possible experience sharing information about the Great Lakes, as well as the work that the Alliance does. There are training opportunities that we do that are online. So even though we're in Chicago, our volunteers that are in West Michigan or Ohio or other areas can tune in and learn that information. We make those engaging, we make those fun and enjoyable for folks to join in. So this is a great way to encourage yourself and your colleagues to get involved that has a little bit of a flexible component to it. So you can be as involved as you want to be, or or come in and out as your schedule dictates. We also have our Adopt a Beach program. This program is our longest standing program, about 30 years going on now this year. So at the root of Adopt a Beach program, it's a basic concept. There's trash on the ground and we're picking it up and we're putting it into a bag or a bucket and disposing of that from the beach. When we think about our Adopt a Beach program, last year we had about 20,000 volunteers across the Great Lakes area that picked up trash along the lakefront. When you think about these cleanups, about 90% of what we find is plastic. And that's not necessarily an entire plastic soda bottle or something like that. It's mostly tiny pieces of plastic, so small percentages of plastic. You can see in the slide that 42% of everything that we pick up at our beach cleanups are what's called tiny trash. And that's something that's the size of about 2.5 centimeters, the size of a quarter, somewhere give or take in there. But more or less it falls into those three categories of food related, smoking related, or tiny trash. And this is something that we see not only in West Michigan, but in all of our beaches across the Great Lakes. Here's an example of what that looks like. I tell people when we do cleanups, and those of you who have participated, most people oftentimes think that they're going to find the refrigerator, the 55-gallon drum, a set of tires, and a bunch of really giant, crazy things like that. And the reality is what you're going to find is some of these smaller pieces of trash. And I think it's important to call that out. And I think that additionally, we often think that it's, bigger is better, but in this case, all trash is equal. Like, I want to remove as much as we can, and you'd be surprised how these small pieces of debris add up to large weight at the end of the cleanup. So I also will add in regards to Adopt a Beach this year, something I want to hammer in on thinking about COVID-19 and high water levels. We will be, we've opened our Adopt a Beach season with a couple of parameters in place for those of you who are interested in volunteering with this. I'll start with COVID-19. One, each landowner that owns the beach, whether it's the state natural resources department, or a city or a county government, they all have different requirements on hosting cleanups, and we're asking our volunteers as they schedule those to reach out to those various landowners to ensure that they're still available and open for cleanups. We're also asking for the various things that's become commonplace in our society, like wearing a mask, adhering to social distancing guidelines, as well as wearing gloves. Hand washing is important, and if you can't do that at your beach location, we're asking folks to bring hand sanitizer. There's a whole long list of things on our site that we're asking folks to adhere to in regards to COVID-19 safety. Additionally, with high water levels, many of the beaches are a fraction of their size due to the high water levels that we've seen this year. So also, as you're planning those events, we're asking folks to go out and check out the beach ahead of time to ensure that the beach is A, still there, and B, the size that you think it needs to be for you to have the cleanup at the size that you can have it, right? So we're asking volunteers to take a little bit of a pre-step, a little bit of homework before scheduling those events to ensure that everything lines up like they have in the past. So thinking about what you can do next. There's obviously you can host or attend a cleanup, and so you can find those at greatlakesadopt.org, and you can register for cleanups and recruit volunteers for your own cleanup. You can support the data collection part of our program. We keep track of every item that we pick up at the beach. That's about 47 items that we keep track of, and we share that data both regionally, nationally, and internationally to influence the conversation on debris found in waterways. So you can support that initiative, and you also can view all of our other resources, training resources, and other data resources that we have on the site. So that's one way that you can take some action. And I know that after being in the house for a while, I anticipate that many people will want to take some steps to get outside and be in nature and get a change of pace in that way. You can also take an action inside your home. So you can take any one of our campaign action alerts. And so these are just a couple of examples of ones that are usually up because there's always something going on with Asian carp or keeping plastic out of the Great Lakes. So there's actions that you can take in the house. I think that's important because I think that oftentimes when we think about taking action, there's like you got to go out and march, you got to go out and contact a legislator, and it can be just as simple as signing a pledge. It can be just as simple as sharing these with your friends and families or people in your network. So these are another way that you can get involved. And then lastly, I think it's important to sign up to receive emails. Now, no one in the history of life has ever said, I definitely want to sign up for someone's email list, but this is when you want to. We'll keep you up to date with volunteer opportunities and ways that you can be involved. We'll also send you action alerts, so things that are important. So if an important piece of legislation is moving through the Michigan State House or through the US House or the US Senate, things like that, we'll send you actions that will say, hey, tell your congressperson that you believe X, or tell them that you are against Y, something like that. And then after you take those alerts, we do follow up with you periodically to let you know how things progress and what happened as a result of your work and of signing our various action and policy alerts. So we do follow up with you as well. I'm a big proponent of the more you know, the more you can do. And so we use our email platform as well as our social media platforms to share that information out with you. As well, in addition to these things, as any major updates that come along, in particular things like COVID-19 and high water levels, things that might impact a lot of our volunteers and supporters, we share information out about that through our email and social media as well. So we want you to sign up to get that information. So the last thing I'll leave you with is our social media platforms. We definitely would hope that you'll follow us on Instagram and Twitter. You also can find us on Facebook at just the Alliance for the Great Lakes. And so I am excited about the beginnings of opening up our Adopt a Beach program and getting out there as soon as I can. And I'm really hopeful that many of you will as well. I also will add in before I turn things back over to other presenters that, we have this can, our Adopt a Beach program is very flexible, and as such can accommodate, the various different types of groups, whether it's your, things look different, whether it's your colleagues or your family or a mixture of both. And I'm happy to talk through anyone that's on the line today about how this program could fit your organization or a group that you're with. I'm happy to talk through what that looks like and help you strategize and plan on how to join in on the Adopt a Beach program or our Alliance Ambassadors program. All right, so.
Thank you, Tyrone. We'll have time for questions later. And as a note, we'll also be sending out the slides to everyone that participated today also. Kathy, would you like to share your screen? And I'm going to ask you to unmute as well as soon as you're ready.
All right. Thank you for asking me to talk about what we're doing in Muskegon. There's been an annual cleanup there for about, more than 30 years. And it does focus mostly on Muskegon Lake. But I am the Environmental Program Manager for the West Michigan Shoreline Regional Development Commission. And part of my job is kind of to staff the Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership, which is an all-volunteer organization. And our environmental program does a whole lot of things. We have 5 counties in our region, and we partner within another 13-county region with different organizations to do a lot of different things, from reforestation to green infrastructure and stormwater management. But related to the topic today, I wanted to keep it kind of focused. And we do have an advisory committee from the 5-county region of watershed organizations, where we meet with them quarterly and talk about priorities for primarily water quality and habitat restoration projects. And then we have a monthly meeting that we help facilitate and organize for the Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership. And they hold a public meeting once a month, either at Grand Valley's Water Resources Institute during the daytime, or in the evening we would move to different locations, such as the short Windsor deck office space there you can see on the left, or we'll meet in other locations throughout the watershed, local government meeting rooms and such. So anyway, the environmental program does take input from the watershed groups, and the Muskegon Lake group has an action plan, and the action plan does call for stewardship. And so since about 1990, we've been partnering with a number of different organizations to do an annual cleanup in the spring. And this year, of course, we were not able to do it on the day that we had scheduled because of COVID-19, but we are rescheduling it, and it looks like it will probably be rescheduled to September 26th, to International Coastal Cleanup Day. And we still have to talk to a couple of our partners who sponsor the event to make sure that that's a good day for them. And a little bit of history, I guess. The reason that the cleanup has always been done on a Sunday morning is because more than 30 years ago, the UAW Local 637 organized labor groups to do a cleanup of Muskegon Lake. And that was prior to 1990. And so because a lot of the factories that operated in Muskegon had volunteers who wanted to do this work, they worked on Saturdays, so they had to do the cleanup on Sunday morning. And when the Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership formed in 1992, they joined that effort and just continued to expand it with new partners. And so it's continued on a Sunday morning every year. So, but for this year, because of COVID, we didn't want to just not do a cleanup. And we always partner with the Alliance for the Great Lakes and the Adopt a Beach as much as we possibly can on the cleanup. So here's a map that shows this year's locations on Muskegon Lake, where we have a volunteer team leader who leads a group of volunteers at each one of these 14 locations. And you'll notice it is all on Muskegon Lake. This is the Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership cleanup. And there are other cleanups that happen on Lake Michigan in Muskegon County too. But today I'll just focus on what the Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership does. And so, you know, we have volunteers who all gather together and who, you know, bring volunteers to each of these locations. Each one of these team leaders has the data forms from the Alliance for the Great Lakes Adopt a Beach, and they use those forms. And so we do have a tally and results of the cleanup every year. And this year, or actually last year, we really started making a more concerted effort for each of the volunteer team leaders to sign up their own beach individually on the Adopt a Beach site. Because we found that what's difficult for us is combining all of the data at the end. Well, not combining it, but getting it then on the Adopt a Beach website and back to the Alliance for the Great Lakes. So our thought was that if we have each of these team leaders be responsible for their own individual site, and it's more likely that we'll get all of the data reported back to the Alliance at the end of the cleanup. The way we do it is we meet downtown Muskegon at 8 o'clock in the morning. The CIO hall is still the meeting place in the morning. That's where the original cleanup started with the UAW Local 637. And fortunately, CIO hall is located right next door to Top Shelf Pizza and to Pigeon Brewery. So when we return from the cleanup, we have a nice place to go and sit outside and enjoy some pizza and a beer or soda pop. And in the morning, each of the team leaders will give a brief talk about their cleanup location so that the volunteers who gather know what to expect at each of these sites, and they can choose to go to whichever site they want to. But the team leader will guide them. We do a little safety talk with everyone first, but we want people to know what to expect. So when the team leader leaves the hall in the morning with a group of volunteers, they grab their bags and they grab tools that the City of Muskegon provides with their tool trailer, because sometimes we need to have, you know, rakes and shovels and wheelbarrows and things like that too, depending on what we expect to find at each of these locations. So gather together in the morning, do the talk, and then everybody goes out to their sites. And then when they return, we're right here next door to a place where we can get pizza and beer. And so that's just an image of some of the volunteers out on the patio there in front of the Top Shelf, kind of enjoying the day. But what they do then is the team leaders will tally up their data. You can see the clipboard. And then we put that all together and do a news release on the Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership Facebook page with the results. And then theoretically, we would have this all totaled and entered onto the Adopt a Beach website, but that's where we've been lacking, is getting that information back to the Alliance. So we're making a real push for each of these team leaders to do that for their own individual site while still being part of the overall Muskegon Lake cleanup. So the early cleanups on Muskegon Lake, you know, did remove the, you know, proverbial, you know, kitchen sink, the refrigerator doors, the car doors, all of those different things, you know, but now it's becoming a little bit less polluted. There's been a lot of cleanup that's been happened, some of it volunteer-based, some of it more large-scale, funded through the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative or the Great Lakes Legacy Act and NOAA. Some of our habitat projects have done a great job of removing the fill and the debris from the shoreline. And students have been involved right along and are continuing to now be more involved in the habitat work that we're doing, so they can use these cleaned up shoreline areas more as an outdoor classroom experience. And with the challenges of high water, some of the access along the Lakeshore Trail bike path is now potentially more dangerous, or some of these sections have been closed while the City of Muskegon comes up with designs to you know, get construction projects going to repair these areas. And then along Lake Michigan itself, there's severe erosion, and that causes some other difficulties, including potentially some safety issues, depending on what is in the lake already along the shoreline or what's about to fall in. And you can see there's a tree that's going to be going down here. This is Pioneer Park that just experienced some severe erosion recently. And I just want to note that this erosion wasn't necessarily due to only Lake Michigan water levels, but it really had a lot to do with stormwater runoff and the way that it drained through this large group camping area at the park and just washed out this section. And then COVID has prevented challenges too. This is Heritage Landing along Muskegon Lake in downtown Muskegon. And we're doing some habitat restoration work there. And we have a team leader for the cleanup, but we also have a steward, a habitat steward, who goes there and will be planting native plants and maintaining some of the already restored areas, including removing some of the invasive species and weeds. And then we do as much as we can with green infrastructure and storm drain maintenance, letting people know that picking up the debris in their neighborhood is important because it ends up in our lake if it does not get removed on the land. So we're really focusing a lot year-round on habitat maintenance, restoration. This is Veterans Memorial Park on the Muskegon River, just immediately above Muskegon Lake. And these are sedges that were installed as part of the Native Habitat Restoration Project. So this is just one of the sites that gets cleaned up, but it's also a site where we have a habitat shoreline steward involved with maintaining this, along with the landowner and the municipalities who do normal maintenance. Now there is a habitat plan at muskegonlake.org. If you go to that website, the tab at the top that says habitat plan will show you all of the restored areas along Muskegon Lake on a map. It will give you a lot of information on how to maintain these areas, what kind of native plants there are, and just a breadth of information on guiding people who want to help care for our shorelines. So I really encourage you to check that out as a great resource, not only really for Muskegon Lake, but as a resource for any of our lakes in Lake Michigan or along Lake Michigan. So anyone interested in adopting one of the restored habitat sites can just contact me. Kathy at muskegonlake.org is an easy one to remember. That'll come to me and I can help you get involved. We do have management plans and a lot of information available for each of the restored sites, as I mentioned before. And all of this information is on that website. And we make sure and let people know what to monitor, what a schedule for maintenance would be, what the types of invasive species are that you might expect to find. And we don't want to overwhelm people. So, just monitoring is great. Just knowing one of the non-native invasive species or weeds is great. Just get started doing a little bit. You don't have to know how to do everything right away. So, finding out how to get involved, a good way to do it is to check out the website, email me, join or like the Facebook page of the Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership, or there's another one called the Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership Shoreline Stewards, and that is a group. So you would have to make sure and answer the question so we can accept you as a member. But the Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership Shoreline Stewards group actually probably has more of the information about how to get involved and when we have volunteer activities for people to become engaged with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And finally, Brittany, would you like to talk a little bit about what Aldea has going on? You're gonna have to unmute yourself. I'm sorry.
Here we go. How's that?
Very good.
Good. Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany. I work for Aldea Coffee. We are in Grand Haven, Muskegon, and Muskegon Heights. We roast downtown Muskegon Heights. So our sustainability efforts kind of spread from Grand Haven all the way up the lakeshore up towards Muskegon. In the past, we've done beach cleanups throughout all three cities. This year, things have really shifted and changed. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we've adapted to doing our beach cleanups this spring and summer with the COVID-19 aspect. That layer has affected all of us. But so as Earth Day was coming up this year, my boss asked like, hey, are we going to reschedule Earth Day? When can we do it? And I said, well, actually, like, what if we do it virtually? Let's see how it goes. So we did a virtual beach cleanup and it went super well. I think we had over 50 participants, and people participated from Holland to Grand Rapids, Grand Haven, Muskegon, up to Whitehall and Twin Lake. So I found it to be very effective to put the word out there through social media and having people actually cleaning up in their areas nearby their homes. We ended up cleaning up, I think, over 100 pounds of trash. And sometimes that sounds kind of like a small number, but the way that Tyrone was explaining it earlier, a lot of the trash that we're finding are just very small pieces of plastic or cigarette butts, cups, lids, all that kind of stuff. And one of the bigger problems we're having now, as I'm sure Tyrone and Kathy have noticed, that we're finding disposable masks, which is not something that we would usually have found. So really important to get out and do that during the day on your daily walks or any time that you can focus on it. I've been trying to start bringing a bag with me everywhere I go just to pick up trash along the trails and parks. This upcoming summer, we are hoping to get back engaged in our beach cleanups once a month. We will not be doing one in June since our cafes are opening up next week. We just need a minute to kind of get our feet on the ground. But we'll be hosting one July 5th from 5 to 7 p.m. at Pure Marquette. There'll be information on our Facebook page and Instagram on details for that event and what time, what to bring if you need to bring anything. We will have a lot of supplies prepared, including hand sanitizer and gloves. And if you are, wanting to wear a mask, please do. There'll probably be about 30 to 50 people we find at these types of cleanups. So just be prepared to have a little bit of a crowd around you. Honestly, like, community engagement is one of the core pieces of Aldea. And so as we've built our business over the past 5 years, I've been able to work on community outreach more and more and making sure that we've got just that engagement piece with the community. And I think it's really been effective to get the word out for who Aldea is and what we do. And also that sustainable businesses can be possible, even though it is a little more challenging, but I've been able to compile some different resources and be happy to talk to anybody who has any questions. You can feel free to send an email to partner@aldeacoffee.com. This year, I started partnering with Taste of Muskegon to work on their event and making it more sustainable. And we were hoping to get a beach cleanup alongside that as well. But as we know, most of those events have gone virtual, so we will not be doing that this year. But yeah, looking forward to hearing if you guys have any specific questions about Aldea and sustainability. But thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So much, Brittany, Kathy, and Tyrone. So we're going to open up to some questions in a moment here. But first to start out, I have an additional question of my own, and I'm curious those who are already doing cleanups, if you're encountering different types of materials and concerns as a relation to the erosion issues that have happened in high water over the past year. Anyone that may like to respond.
So the short answer is yes. And I think that what we found is that as water has, the trash, when the water is receded, like there's like the people that come through and do their various recreational acts and like leave things behind. As the water rises, that trash oftentimes can get submerged or stuck in that. And so then it stays longer, breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces, which makes it even more difficult to pick up after that water has receded. So it creates like a long lasting problem and then like a different type of problem. But the short answer is yes, we're seeing different types of litter. And then like the way that we need to remove it is actually just a little more challenging and more arduous.
Kathy, Brittany, how about you? Are you seeing different and or more dangerous things? Kathy?
Well, There is a lot of building material along Lake Michigan now because of the erosion and the staircases and things that have fallen in, and there have been septic tanks that have failed. And you can find some pieces of, a lot of different kinds of structures and different larger pieces of material. So I would just advise that people just, be very cautious in what they pick up. Obviously, we're always organizing with a landowner, a municipality, someone to haul that trash away or recycle it. So a lot of coordination will be needed, I think, now, because we are finding a lot more unusual, larger items. And I think we should also be careful along the lakeshore itself in some places because of the erosion and some large trees that are coming down. Mm-hmm. So go out there and do the cleanup by all means, but just, we need to be very safety conscious on not only the type of material that we're picking up and handling, but also the surrounding area when it's actually still actively eroding.
Brittany, how about you?
I kind of think that what I would say would build on what Tyrone was saying, but one of the biggest challenges that I've noticed is that alongside with the water levels rising, there's been a lot of debris of just like sticks and grasses and stuff like that, kind of creating a clump, and then the trash is kind of mixed in with all of that. And so I think it's a little bit more important that we're looking closely at that stuff to be able to get the trash out, and even in some cases maybe removing some of the sticks and just regular debris that's washing up as well. I think it's made the beaches a little bit harder to even just walk on. Lake Harbor Beach, I don't know if either of you guys have been out there lately, but it was very interesting to look at the way that the sand had fallen and the way that the trash had washed up alongside all of the debris. So just, I know, like Kathy is saying too, just be careful when you're out there and make sure you've got, gloves on to make sure you're not hurting yourself when you're picking up any of that stuff with literally nails attached to it.
Someone in the Q&A field asked a question about are there guidelines and safety documents for volunteers? Tyrone, you shared a document in the Q&A field. If you wouldn't mind sharing that in the chat, so all the attendees can see it, I'd appreciate that. I think there was an additional question about encouraging volunteers to sign a photo release and liability release form. And we did, and Tyrone did answer that in the Q&A field, that this does happen. It happens register online. Or it does happen when they register online or sign up in person.
Right, so to add to that, we are encouraging people to sign up ahead of time for our cleanups. That's going to do two things. One, it will help our team leaders better plan to bring the appropriate supplies that they need. But beyond that, if they register ahead of time, it kind of cuts down some of the paperwork, and literally no one likes to do paperwork. So it makes that process a lot easier for us. But in that process, when you're signing up, there's a point to do that as well. But even if you have people that sign up in person, so if like a passerby sees what's happening and just wants to join in because they think it's a cool action, they want to join in, it's still important to have those people sign the waiver as well. In my time of doing cleanups, I've not seen any major injuries or anything like that, but in particular for COVID-19 times, it's even more important to make sure that we're following the liability processes, because we don't want to open up any of our organizations to that type of risk by having volunteers not sign the appropriate waiver and liability forms.
We have a participant that's asking if there's any applicable hashtags around the idea of such as hashtag carry a bag, hashtag beach cleanup, hashtag as you go. Do any of your cleanups utilize those, and or would you like to share them?
We have not been using any hashtags with Aldea, but I do know, and I think that Tyrone might know him as well, but that kid who's doing the Take 5 down in the St. Joseph area, Noah, do you want to speak about, he has a hashtag for sure.
So two things. One is that we do our cleanups, we hashtag adopt a beach. Noah is a kid in, like Brittany said, in St. Joseph. I think he's 11. And he has an initiative that he's running, and he always is partnering with us regarding Take 5 for the Great Lakes. And so you can search his information if you're in that area and want to support his cleanups. I know that he does cleanups in the St. Joseph area. And so that's another one that you can search. You also will see an emergence of hashtags around particular times. So like you'll see one for particularly I can think of off the top of my head is 4th of July. So you'll see one that says like plastic free 4th of July or plastic free holiday, things like that. And you'll see those as those holidays start to come up in the calendar. You'll see hashtags emerge around those particular dates and times.
Kathy, do you have a hashtag?
No, not an official one that's used year-round, but I think I recall last year some of the team leaders were using hashtags, including the Adopt a Beach hashtag to promote involvement. That's not a bad idea, though, to have one that's solid and ongoing. Thanks for that idea.
Now, for those who are doing virtual cleanups, do you provide a list of locations using a map of volunteers to choose from?
I guess, so for us, we did not use a map. It's a really good idea, especially if there are certain areas that we would like to focus on. I really like that, but we did not use a map on this one. Maybe something we could do for the future.
When I've seen these in other areas, I have not done these, but what the people that I've spoken with have said is that their priority is just getting people doing it. And so they don't want to provide any restrictions for folks to get out and do that work. And so I think it's more about educating people on the life of litter. So when it gets to your storm drain and how that connects into the lake. And I know Kathy was speaking about that in some of her presentation. I think that's the heart of what of these like virtual or neighborhood-based cleanups. I know that oftentimes there's a disconnect between neighborhood cleanups and beach cleanups, and folks believe that those are two separate things, and in fact they're actually connected more so than what people actually realize. Especially in times now where we have so many major rain and water events, and how those systems connect back to the Great Lakes. And so I think it has a bigger benefit than what people actually realize, and honestly, a really good way for those volunteers to participate in these types of activities that might have concerns about gathering in large groups, or wherever they are, like the beach particularly, if the beach is closed or not accessible at the time.
Tyler, you'd probably be a good person to start with this. Can we talk a little bit about the importance of corporate and company partnerships for as service opportunities to be able to host cleanups throughout the summer?
Absolutely. So I am a huge proponent of corporate groups getting involved with the Adopt a Beach program, and for a couple of reasons. I know that there's a growing movement in the business world just to be more volunteer conscious and having a better experience there. And one of the things that I've seen about the Adopt a Beach program, and I've managed many volunteer programs in my career, this one has the least barrier to entry that I can think of. At the heart of it, you're picking something up and putting it in a bag. And I think that allows many people to volunteer and take part of that. We at the Alliance, we provide different services that corporations can or corporate groups can opt into, that provide more of a concierge service of cleanups, and through sponsorship of our program, and that allows us to do all of the legwork. So all that you have to do if you take that sponsorship route is get your people from the office to the beach and from the beach back to the office, and we handle the work on the in-between, so that we're handling the safety conversations, making sure the supplies are there, running the cleanup, getting your data, putting it back to you in a pretty graph, doing all the legwork. So there's a lot of opportunities for you to do that, and beyond the fact that it's easy, I think that more and more employees are expecting their employer to engage in not only volunteer opportunities, but meaningful volunteer opportunities that matter. And I can't think of much else in, you know, the environment is one of those really big topics that I think a lot of people that are really leaning into and wanting to make a difference on.
Kathy, Kathy, do you have any thoughts on that?
We have companies who send volunteers to the Muskegon Lake cleanup every year, and then we have some that come to some of our habitat stewardship events. I know DTE is involved this year, Shoreline, Consumers Energy. I don't want to keep going because I'll forget some, but we have some corporate involvement, volunteers from these companies, and we have a number of service-based type organizations like the United Way and the labor organizations, and others too. So yeah, we love that when we get that. I had a call one year from Target. They wanted to send a group out, and I said, sure. You know, we make it easy because you just show up in the morning, and we have a team leader already there ready to take you to the location. And Muskegon Lake isn't on Lake Michigan, so we do have to make a map and show directions to these different locations because they're not as easy to find as saying go to Pier Marquette Park, right? You know, meet by the bathhouse or something like that. You know, but we do make it easy for volunteers to just show up, and then they can just choose whichever site they want. The volunteer team leaders will say, you know, my site probably only needs 5 or 10 people, you know, or somebody might say, we can use everybody. When you're done at your site, come on over to this one because there's going to be enough there for multiple cleanups, you know. So corporate, you know, service-based groups, any group, scout groups we've had are all very welcome.
Brittany, probably a little different question for a question for you and Aldea. The why is it important for why is Aldea investing in these things, and why is it important for has your organization found keeping beaches, rivers important?
Well, part of it started out of just a passion that I had personally. One of the strengths I think that Aldea really has is that they want to build on those personal strengths and passions. And so I'm like, okay, I kind of want to do this. And all of a sudden, Tyrone's got me doing trainings. And I actually, one of the first events I attended was Kathy's Muskegon Lake cleanup. And the more and more that we got involved in them, the more and more that I enjoyed doing them. So my other favorite part about doing them is partnering with a lot of other organizations. We've partnered with WMSRDC multiple times, Padnos out of Grand Rapids, other local businesses here. And the more and more that we're seeing how that can connect everybody together and make a larger impact, the more and more that we want to be involved. But one of our main core goals for Aldea, one of our basic mission, out of our mission statement, is to preserve the earth. And so as we were creating that a couple of years ago, just really set the tone for being able to be involved in these types of events. And my boss actually wrote this that I will read really quickly. It's just really beautiful way to look at it and how much we can impact the earth. Aldea is inspired by our predecessors in the environmental movement. Good stewardship of the earth is by no means a modern concept, and we proudly stand on the shoulders of past leaders like the Iroquois, who contemplated the effects of their decisions on people 7 generations into the future. It is a truly beautiful sentiment and an ethos worthy of upholding. It just seems to be part of our souls, and so we just expand on it as much as we can. Do you have any other questions?
What is that? That is actually other questions I have. Does anyone have any further thoughts they'd like to add as we wrap up today? Tyrone, you are on mute.
The last thing I will add is that one of the reasons why I think the Adopt a Beach program or beach cleanup programs or lakefront cleanup programs are successful is that there is an immediate or direct link for their actual benefit from doing the volunteerism. I think about this, oftentimes we think about volunteerism as I, the volunteer, am doing a service for you or someone else so that you can benefit. Like it's like I'm doing something for you. By doing beach cleanups, you're doing something for yourself too. Like you drink water, and like you need access to clean water. And so that is automatically, I think that helps people. It just is a different way of thinking about volunteerism. That's not usually how we think about volunteerism, where it's for you just as much as it is for everyone else that's in the community. And so there's like a vested interest in making sure that your water is clean, beyond the fact that I think that it connects people back to place and connects them back to the natural resources that we oftentimes take for granted in the Great Lakes region. So I think there's a huge benefit for getting your colleagues involved in these types of programs. Not to say that, you know, other programs aren't great, but I think this one has a particular resonance in the Great Lakes area, in particular for West Michigan.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that, being a team leader in the area here, I have worked with other businesses and organizations just to lead their cleanups. It doesn't necessarily mean it's completely connected to Aldea, but I'm more than happy to help out anytime that anybody wants to run one.
Kathy, any final thoughts?
No, I think maybe one thing that I should have mentioned earlier, but it's maybe not a wrap-up kind of thought, but because we're getting all of this larger debris, it's probably even more important now to coordinate with municipalities on the pickup locations and how much trash there's going to be and what type of trash it will be, or if it's recyclable or not. We always have to coordinate the pickup locations along the Muskegon Lake cleanup because it's more than 8 miles of shoreline just on the south side, and there's a lot of different places to put the trash. But now that we're getting lumber and other debris that's large, I think we just have to make sure that we make those connections in advance so that we don't end up with a pile of trash sitting somewhere for a long time. Then you get the phone calls, right? You know, why isn't there trash in front of my cul-de-sac or my whatever? Because, you know, we are working on, it's an inland lake, but it's really not. It's really part of Lake Michigan. You know, Muskegon Lake is really a coastal marsh wetland of the lake. It sits down within the coastal zone completely. So Muskegon Lake is kind of like it kind of is Lake Michigan.
All right. Well, thank you so much for our guests, to all of our speakers today. We will be sending out a recording this presentation and slides in the next few days here, and I'm hopeful that our presenters will be able to share with us additional information on how to get involved in the various cleanup opportunities, which were for the most part represent the slides as well. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Tyrone, and thank you, Brittany, for joining us today. And thank you, everyone for taking your lunch hour to learn more about how we can keep cleanups moving forward during these interesting times.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.